Yo, what is good, YouTube? It is your boy James, and today I'm coming at y'all with another episode of the previewing and predicting series. I talked about it in my Donovan Mitchell trade. Today we're talking about a team that shook up the offseason, and that is the Utah Jazz. Now, the Utah Jazz obviously traded away Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell, so they have a completely new look roster. So let's talk about that today. So I have two lineups here that I made. And take it in order of, although I don't have, point guard, shooting guard. This is, Clarkson, point guard, Beasley, shooting guard, that sort of order. But when it comes to the Utah Jazz, I actually think they did a pretty good job of adding younger talent. Although they did have two of the bigger trade assets, I feel like they did a pretty good job of just bringing in as many young guys as possible. And they still have maybe a Russell Westbrook trade looming to maybe not bring in a young guy, but add a couple more picks to the arsenal, because I believe they added 13. They got around 13, I'm pretty sure. I think they got 7 unprotected, 6 unprotected, something like that. But when looking at the roster, this top one is if for some reason they think they still have a chance to compete. I tried to put together the roster that I seem best fit, and that is Mike Conley. I still think he can be a good leader for this team. You don't like his contract, you don't like his age, but if you do want to, keep around a good leader in a locker room guy, although Conley might not want to be there anymore, I think he can be that guy. Colin Sexton is a guy I like a lot. I love his, rim attack, rim pressure. You'd like, see him off that ACL, but I think they got him for a pretty good contract, locking him up long term. I like his upside as maybe a number 3 on a championship team. I don't know about a 2, but I think he can be a very, very good 1 or 2 on a playoff team. THT is the third guy. I don't like his contract. I know Lakers fans have talked about it a lot. If he plays well, you're going to have to pay him again, and you just got Sexton. If you don't pull off the Westbrook trade, you're still going to have Conley, and I believe Bojan under contract next year. Beasley makes a decent amount, so if he plays well, I don't know realistically how much you're going to want to pay him. But if he plays well enough and you see the potential, then maybe you do whatever you can to keep him around. Bojan is kind of just here. I talked about him to the Heat in my trade video. I think a team like the Heat, a team like the Lakers, even if you can pull it off without Westbrook, which I don't know if you can, just a team that could use another shooter. I even look at Milwaukee in a way, if you can make the money work and run Chris at the 2. But I don't think the money works there. At the center, I have Laurie. I don't think Laurie can play center. I think he kind of has the. I don't know, but he's not. He's not aggressive enough. He's pretty skinny. So I don't think he can play the center. But I still think there's an avenue that he could succeed there. But I don't see him working at center. And with his injury history, you probably don't want him there. Jordan Clarkson, 6th man of the year. Malik Beasley is a guy I really like. Hopefully he can strive for some consistency in Utah. But I think, like I said, if you're going to try to compete for some reason, that's what this lineup is for. I think Clarkson and Beasley works pretty well off the bench. Maybe you can see if he can stride into just an overall better player with more opportunity, even though Minnesota was bad for a couple years. Ochai Agbaji, sorry if I'm saying his name wrong, a guy that I don't really know a lot about, but from what I understand, people are very high on him, so, play him there next to Clarkson, Beasley, Vanderbilt, and Kessler. I actually watched some Kessler tape before doing this video, and I think Kessler's actually got some decent upside just because of his mobility for his size. He still needs to polish a lot of things, but he was a great shot blocker. And like I said, he's quick. A lot of 7-1 guys aren't as quick as Walker Kessler, so maybe you can see him take some strides. And this is a team that needs centers. And then you just have Stanley and Rudy Gay. Like I said, this lineup is not what I would rock. But if you're going to try to compete for some reason, and honestly, some people are slotting them in as like the worst team in basketball. I don't think this team is that. They're definitely not a play-in team, but like they're not the worst team. Like, I'd probably still take them over the Rockets, this team. So, like, if you're going to try to, for some reason, crack a play-in spot, this would be the lineup I would run. And call me crazy, I do think that there would be a way that this team could crack a play-in spot. I really don't hate this team. And obviously, it's lacking a lot. But, like, if you told me this team at the end of the year was better than San Antonio, Houston, OKC, and then, like, I don't think the Kings are Lakers, so maybe I would slot them in at, like, 12. But I do think they're better than San Antonio, OKC, and Houston. That lineup there. And then maybe you can argue, can they beat out Sacramento? Can they beat out the Lakers? Like, that sounds crazy to say, but so I don't hate this lineup. I think it's got some upside in Marketing, THT, Sexton, and then off the bench, Oche, Kessler, Vanderbilt. They brought in a couple other guys that I didn't put on the roster. And then here's the lineup that I would rock if you're trying to tank it out. Like I said, even if you're trying to tank, I would still keep Sexton in this point guard role just so he can kind of facilitate a little bit, be a leader. But the main thing here is, first off, Kessler is getting a lot of PT, but I think you should surround Sexton with as many shooters as you can for this year because you want to build up as much confidence as you can and just, as much skill. You want to develop him as much as possible. And I think he could be a guy that you see him as a bridge year. Just let's make sure that Laurie and Sexton get as better as possible as they can. And I think this lineup does that just because Kessler, although he can't shoot, he doesn't have a horrible touch. So maybe they can develop him into a decent shooter. But Beasley and Laurie and Conley, they will all play off of Sexton really well. And then Clarkson, Jared Butler is a guy I'm okay on. I also just I think teams, even though they're rebuilding, need to keep around guys, first off for money, business, but also just for future endeavors. I don't know how old Jordan Clarkson is, but he's a guy that I wouldn't hate if you keep around. So he's 30. Okay, so I don't know. I don't hate the idea of keeping him around, signing him to a new extension for 2 or 3 years if he's willing to do that. But if you trade him, that's fine too. Jared Butler's a guy I don't really know much about. But from what I do know, I think he could be a decent little player. THT coming off the bench. Like I said, if you want to start him, that's fine. But I think that starting lineup flows better through Sexton with THT on the bench. And then you have Jared Vanderbilt, who I actually am really high on. I just think he needs to polish some things out. And then Azubuike, I don't remember his first name. Don't know how to spell his last name. And then you would probably have to pull a trade here, but like I said, if you could do Clarkson and Bojan or Bojan and Conley for Westbrook in those 2 picks, I would do it. I probably should have pulled up a trade, but I think Conley and Bojan, if you can get even 1 first, I would do that. I don't think you should throw Beasley in there. I don't think you can throw Beasley in there yet, but I like Beasley. I think you should keep him around. But this is the lineup I would roll with. It would obviously be different if you trade Clarkson, then you would go Butler and Nickeil Alexander-Walker, or maybe you just go Butler, THT at the 2, slide in Stanley. But this is probably the lineup I would rock. Bojan is the one guy that I really don't think he has a spot. But like I said, I think Conley can be a decent leader, and I think Jordan Clarkson just for business and to give your fans something more to root for. You can keep Clarkson around. But the last thing I wanted to talk about, I've talked about the lineups for a decent amount of time, is just, do I think that, first off, the rebuild was the right move, and second off, did they make the right moves? And for me, I am a guy that even if you're the first seed in the West, if you don't have confidence that you can get out of the second round, I think you should rebuild. I'm a guy that I solely believe in. You always have a route to either get better or to win a championship. And I think Utah was kind of in a spot where they couldn't do anything drastic. They didn't have a lot of young assets. And they didn't have, high-end picks. So yeah, holy shit, I just had a brain fart. But I didn't think they could really take another leap. So I thought it was the right move. Danny Ainge got his picks and his young talent. So I do think rebuilding was the right move. If you wanted to keep it around, just can try to tell yourself you could get to a Western Conference Finals with the team, that probably would have been fine too. But I think you couldn't really get much better unless Donovan Mitchell took a huge leap. I didn't really have assets to get better. You're a smaller market. No one really wants to go play in Utah. So I think rebuilding was the right move. Now, did they make the right trades? I think the Gobert trade, they hit the nail on the coffin no matter what. Like I said, I watched some Kessler tape. I'm not going to act like I'm some Walker Kessler genius, but he does look like he's decent. I like Malik Beasley. And then you just got an influx of picks. I also really like Jared Vanderbilt. So I think you hit the Rudy Gobert trade a lot. The Donovan Mitchell trade, I honestly don't hate the fact that they didn't go get RJ, because you would have had to pay RJ that max contract, and he makes you into a solid team. I do think that I really like Obi Toppin, so I think that missing out on Toppin sucks, but you already had Vanderbilt. So I don't hate them for not taking the Knicks offer. If they offered them Grimes quickly and Toppin, if you could have done that, then I probably would have taken that over Sexton, just because you're getting a lot worse. I think Sexton and Laurie can actually make you decent. But the one thing I do like about the trade is, let's say you're bad top 5 pick. You're adding a top 5 pick and you already have Laurie, Vanderbilt, Sexton, Beasley there no matter what. So you added guys that they might make you a little better now, but they're guys that can stick. And they're guys that they might not be building blocks, right? Like you might not be building your team around Sexton and Laurie, but they're building pieces, right? That they can fit into a winning culture. So I think they did a good job there. And I like the contract they gave to Sexton. I think it was pretty fair. So other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed. It was kind of weird timing that I skipped a day to see if the Jazz, like where they were going to go, and the trade happened. So I'm very glad I did that. But it's kind of weird timing to talk about a Donovan Mitchell trade. And then, um, and be talking about the Jazz 2 days later. But if you guys did enjoy, please leave a like and subscribe. I believe it's Knicks Lakers next, and those are two teams who I'm interested to talk about because I'm a little harsher on them than other guys. But if you did enjoy, please like and subscribe, and I'll see y'all probably tomorrow.